It's 7:01 on November 7th, and I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Oneonta to order. And if you would please call the roll.
Mayor Dronick.
Here.
Councilmember Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Whitmore.
Here.
Councilmember Hutchinson. Here. Councilmember Carter.
Here.
Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Councilmember Ridgely.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson. Here.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Folks, and before we move into our petitioners, I don't believe we have a public hearing, do we? We do not. Right?
I'm sorry, sir.
So we don't have a public hearing.
No, no problem.
Before we move into petitioners and our correspondence, let's see if we can get Kevin Wood up on our Zoom. Okay, and I will introduce Kevin Wood, the grandson of Al Galladoro. And Kevin, you've got the virtual floor.
Fantastic. Everybody see and hear me?
Yes.
Just give me a thumbs up. That's
Yes.
good. Thank you so much. Pleasure to see everybody. And thank you for having us, myself and Andrew Thomas, join you here today. To the council, to the mayor, to the admin, and Kerry for getting me on board here. We really appreciate it. Just wanted to take 1 minute to just give you some background on myself, my affiliation with Oneonta. I graduated Oneonta State in '84. I spent the years of 1980 to '89 in Oneonta. Some of the best years of my life, in so many ways. I played music in Oneonta. I own several businesses and have family in Oneonta, and I do miss it and visit as much as I can now. I live on Long Island now. I have 4 children. I actually work in municipal government myself. And funny enough, myself and Andrew are actually working on a stage in the village of Port Jefferson. So a little bit about Al as well. Al was my grandfather. I managed his music, his recorded music. We traveled to hundreds of dates together, and I spent some great years with him in Oneonta, as well as East Islip, Long Island. Al Galladoro started his career in New Orleans, had a 40-plus year amazing career in Long Island, New York City, where he traveled to every major city. And then, lucky for all of us, he spent his last 28 years of his life in Oneonta, and I use the words just lit it up. What's really special about Al is there's nothing in music he hadn't done. Those of you that do know of him personally or know of his reputation, he did jazz, classical, he played standards, he played for the top people in the world at Carnegie Hall. He played at jazz festivals, Breda Jazz Festival being a standout. I accompanied him at the 6th World Saxophone Congress in Chicago, and countless hundreds of accomplishments that Al has made. He was a professor both at Hartwick and the State University of Oneonta, and quite literally, I'm not saying this, but Tommy Dorsey said it, he is the world's greatest saxophone player. And how lucky are we that his last 28 years were in Oneonta. Again, those that want to learn more about Al in the audience that are watching this video or on the Common Council, please go to the Wikipedia page to just realize what a gem we have in Al Galladoro. So recently, I was in town. I had been coming down from Verona, New York, and some of you may saw a video that I started for a GoFundMe because I felt extremely passionate that life really moves by quickly. Al passed away in 2008. We're now at 2023. I now have a grandson, and time is passing quickly, and I feel fervently that we want to leave our mark in Oneonta and build a memorial stage for Al. And I feel passionate about me being involved in that and sort of showing you what we have to offer, and both in design and what we think it can offer the city for here on after. We think it's really a treasure jewel to be had. I think, again, we are so lucky to be able to have his legacy be in Oneonta. And so shortly I'll be turning over the presentation to architect Andrew Thomas, very talented architect. And we want to show you what we've come up with in the 3 short weeks that we've had to do this. We will take questions, of course, after this. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce Andrew Thomas.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me as well? Hear and see me as well? Yes, perfect. Hands in the audience. Thank you very much. I really appreciate being brought in on this. It's been really a pleasure to get to know Al Galidoro and Kevin's passion, and I've been listening to his music while I work on this. I'm not from Oneonta myself, but I am from Ithaca, upstate, before finding my way down here to the island and government service as well. I've been on the zoning board here in Port Jefferson and had the pleasure of working up to this point with Kevin on, like he mentioned, the bandshell project for our own Harborfront Park here in Port Jefferson. So it was a natural fit to put together this charrette and basically just brainstorm some ideas, begin to look at the process, begin to look at the site, and start a conversation about what the stage can be and some strategies for how to move forward. So am I able to share my screen? It appears I am. I'll ask for another show of hands to make sure that everything's working. Let's see. Can you see a satellite photograph of Oneonta?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, so obviously we're all familiar with this. We're going to zoom in on Muller Plaza here, right in the heart of, let me get my advancing, there we go, right off of Main Street. And the next couple of images that I've got, there was a sort of a draft RFP for design proposals, which was envisioning a stage potentially in the corner. You know, there was a question mark there in the document, but it was considering a stage of hypothetically 4 foot tall, roughly 300 square feet, potentially in the corner of the square here. So as a starting point, that was part of the conversation, considering you know, the sites that had been considered. And we looked at this. The next slide here is sort of outlining that. You can see that's actually coming out all the way as far as and past the center medallion, which is right here in the square. I don't know if you can see my mouse. But it's even considerably larger than the outlined yellow that's in the plan here. And so just taking a step back from, and this outline right here is probably more in the realm of 2 feet tall. So what was proposed was really quite a large band stage, as would be appropriate for a large park. But I wanted to take a step back and take a look at the square itself, its character, do a little bit of analysis. You can see here, it's a little bit blurry, but working over this, you know, I keep wanting to call it Muller Square because it has this really sort of pure central square that's part of its composition. It is Muller Plaza, keep calling it square. And so it has this central square and it has this central axis. And it has, you know, with these alleys of trees on either side to the south, and then the kind of crossing up here, the way it moves from the street back through to this back access point here, it's actually quite reminiscent for me of a traditional church plan in the sort of a transept, nave, apse, you know, and central crossing space. And that square central crossing space really is quite generous and compositionally central to the park. It's elegant, it's spacious, it's clean. Taking a look at it here, right, it is generous in that space. I've kind of mocked up something. This isn't even 300 square feet. This would be maybe 150, 200 square feet there in that corner. It is 4 feet in height, where that brief envisioned it. And this might be the stage that I would design if I was trying to do a temporary concert here, like a very large venue, close off the street, bring in a lot of people and kind of have a one-time event. But I can't get away in looking at it on the page and on the square here, kind of eating into the corner of that square, that as a permanent structure, looking like a permanent stage with a back, with that level of height, which would make it uninviting for other uses. And occupying the place that wants to be the sort of central open space of the park, feels to me as a first analysis to be less optimal siting. So I know that there had been some talk of the niche to the left. And this was the site that we're considering. Obviously, we can continue to have that conversation, but this seems, based upon my analysis, our conversation, and Kevin's visit to the site, to be a natural fit for a space that could both serve as a stage, but also be inviting as a piece of public architecture within the plaza, something of a pergola. I understand that space is used by a restaurant currently. That could probably continue if access is provided at the back. And it would be the kind of thing where people might feel invited to kind of walk up and sit, or have tables and chairs when there aren't concerts, right? You'd like it to feel natural and at home when it's not being programmed as well. And so, just sort of zooming in on what this could be, we kind of began a design charrette looking at a very simple box, which can take many different characters, right? So we've done a number of different pieces of designs, all in one way or another inspired by Al, by the area, by the history, by the jazz, and sort of different aesthetic aspects of that. And I'm going to share a bunch of those, but the idea is that we can just sort of develop a pergola in this space which fits naturally and easily. So this is a sort of an approach for a modern version. Obviously, we're taking, and we can talk more about each of these designs as we zoom in on them a little bit. But you can see here, I've got a bunch of different options on the page, and the idea is to start a conversation. We're quite partial to the one that I showed first, but I'll walk through each of the designs and explain the pros and cons. And as always, you can kind of mix and match different ideas and use this as a starting point for a conversation. So let's just take a look here. We'll do kind of a walkthrough to see what the approach would be like, get a sense for how that alley might continue to interact and gain access in the back, and kind of the presence that this might have within the trees, approaching it on axis now, right? And the goal is to make kind of a little jewel box or a gem, something that's very appealing in the space. And I'll transition it now to sort of Photoshop it into its context here. You can see, particularly in this design, how the use of color allows it to really pop despite the dappled light, which is happening because of the trees, right? Some of the other designs can tend to disappear a little bit, the wood texture, for example. But using essentially what this would be is a welded steel that's been painted. So, but it's done as two tones. So the exterior would be this muted, darker gray, almost black. And the interior would be a bright yellowy gold in a way that almost akin to a nice purse or a shoe or a suit or something, where you have like a more staid traditional exterior subdued color, and you kind of open it up and you have this pop of color in the lining, which is a little bit of a surprise and kind of, in this case, creates this sense of warmth on the inside. Some of the other designs we looked at, Kevin was sharing stories about Al and his how he started his career in the 20s at the Orpheum Theater, the Orpheum in New Orleans, and this is sort of inspired by the canopy. It's still there today. It's a beautiful structure, right? Very sort of neoclassical, a reference, and obviously the Orpheum being a reference to Orpheus and the music arts. So there's a lot of sort of neoclassical work up top in the stonework of the building, which one wouldn't attempt to replicate today. But this patinaed copper and bronze detailing on this canopy was suggestive of maybe more of a literal Art Deco approach, right? Where you might have these kind of steel columns folded in an Art Deco stylized symmetrical Art Deco fashion, but reminiscent of pulled back curtains, or right, there's sort of play that we can do here around different styles. Another approach might be again contemporary, but a little bit more rustic, very accessible, very familiar, very warm, a kind of a timber structure where you're locking these things together. It's quite structurally sound, quite straightforward. And really very beautiful, and at home in the woods. It disappears a little bit more, but in a natural fashion. And the last one is a little bit more of our upstate, it may be an Orpheum, but more by reference than by literal architecture, more of your Greek revival, Akkadian, idealized dwelling in a woods type approach, right? You can see we had a lot of fun here looking at again, bringing a bit of that jazz Art Deco flair into these brass handrails that are in the pattern of a saxophone. Very ornate and elaborate, but now is the time to kind of put out a bunch of ideas and see what really sparks the creativity in the process. But getting back to this piece right here, there's something about it that feels more about the space and what's happening in it than the object itself. And so it ends up kind of creating this beautiful, clean, classic because of its detailing, but still contemporary. It feels at home being built today, and yet with that gold tone, with those letterings, with that detailing, with that pinstripe and that reveal, it has a little bit of that Art Deco in it. And we did manage to integrate back in some of that formal reference, almost like a little secret in it that we worked the lattice pattern in order to bring back the pattern of the saxophone, right? So there's this when the sun is just right, in the summer, in the middle of the day, and it's clear and shining, you would be able to see that sort of presence of Al there as a reference in the shadow, but it's not sort of ornately worked into the handrails in so much of an obvious fashion, right? So you can see there's a whole host of ideas on the table. We've really had a lot of fun with it. It's been a great project to be collaborating with Kevin on, and you can see that we have contingency here for ways that we can start to, if raising money, perhaps donor reference is a part of that. We're envisioning here that maybe on the front steps, I've got a number of placeholder pun names for various donors, but any of the schemes could have this worked inlaid on the steps in a way that isn't really obvious when you're looking at the stage, but more when you're up and experiencing the space, right? So it's not plastered on the wall, but it's still prominent in center. And one of the things that we find appealing about this design is that it feels very within reach. Sort of a welded steel approach where we've kind of if you cut away the section of it here, you can see that you're basically these it's simple L sections, whether built up and welded or stock angles, cut down so you can paint that flat end of it. All shop welded, manufactured to a series of shop drawings, chipped and bolted down, plenty structural. Another advantage is that we could proportion the top correctly in such a fashion that we should be able to conceal, if it's desirable, an operable shading device, if there was the desire to be able to have it be open most times, but retract a fabric covering, which would protect from rain in the event that people have brought musical equipment and such, and they're all set up. That you don't want to be at the mercy of a small shower that wouldn't otherwise rain out a show but for musical equipment. So that sort of thing might work. You can see there's plenty of on the market products for retractable shades, which work with static pergolas, right? Essentially a roller or other mechanism which conceals a device up top, and that could be expanded at the touch of a button. But all in all, this is where we've ended up. We wanted to share our ideas with you and our excitement around this project, and hope to hear your questions, your thoughts, and hope you're as excited as we are. I'll pass it back to Kevin.
Thank you, Andrew. Really phenomenal. I will say that picture of Al is from Oneonta on Main Street at some point. So it's good to see him again. Thank you so much. The few things I'll add to this, and I'll defer always to design to Andrew. I hope everybody sees obviously why. It's phenomenal that we're able to leave the literal existing lamp post there that I think were placed there in 1980. The only other thing I would say is that every single one of these is clean, simple, and very obtainable. This is not a $250,000 stage. This is not a $100,000 stage. This is a very doable project. And we can talk finance at another time. It doesn't have to be this session. This session is really, wow, look what we can do with this space. The only other thing I will say about this space, it would be my hope and plan, and I can do this, that we could have Al's playing music be accessible on an FM signal, so that somebody could be in the car there and listen to Al's music from that stage and or stream it. So that's pretty exciting too. we will open it up to questions at this point.
Thank you, Kevin. Let me open up, Glenn, did you?
Yeah, so Kevin, thank you very much for putting this all together.
You're welcome.
As you said, you've only had a couple of weeks to put this all together. You and Andrew have done a phenomenal job. I think the renderings with the computer aided design really helps us all visualize what that space could look like. You've taken it. I agree, the 4-foot level was just way too high. You brought it back down to a very obtainable, approachable stage. So for me, I'm with Andrew. I like exhibit number 1. I like the fact that it just blends in with the space, but I also like the gold on the inside. And then you guys want to step further and put the saxophone imprint on the roof so it'll shine through on sunny days. So that's kind of a cool factor. Would have never thought of that. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Yep, thank you for the opportunity. I will say the gold signifies, it might be obvious, it might not be. Al wore, if you knew him, he wore a gold ring, and typical Sicilian gold ring. The saxophone is gold, and his actual name means golden rooster in Italian or Sicilian. So there, there's a big, little needle that's going to this particular design. But hey, this is recorded. I want everybody that's in this meeting to look this over, hear us out. We're really excited about the prospects of making Oneonta, just live on the legacy of this great artist.
And we got another question for you, Keith.
Yes, Andrew, excuse me. Can you get rid of, as much as I love to see that, I can't
sure.
see the council, so I don't actually know who's
Oh,
talking.
sure thing. Hold up. Better?
Yeah, if somebody, whoever's asking the question can identify, because we could hardly see it.
Yeah, we're small on the screen. I'm Katie. I'm a 4th Ward Council member. I just wanted to say, I agree. I really like the first one. I think the second one maybe would be my second choice, but I just really wanted to appreciate out loud that you considered the space in your designs, the use of the space, where people would watch from, and what we might be able to do when that space is passive. I like that specifically the first 2, I think, look kind of at home in the downtown area. They have a theatricness to them that I think is appropriate. And yeah, I just like that you considered the use of the plaza and pulled it off to the side. I think that was a really good idea. So
Thank you. The integration was important. But by the way, notice we didn't build any speakers into this. We don't, I mean, I have a lot of experience with this. We don't think speakers should be built into something like this. You can imagine that musicians, and you'll need a full-time person there to set it up, and there's vandalism, and there's really no reason for it. And you might want to do that at another stage with a bigger budget. We don't see the reason for it.
Really good electrical service is the key.
Got Dave Risberger here.
Yes, hi Kevin, Dave Risberger, 3rd Ward. I just want to thank you for the work that you put into this. I would agree completely with Katie on this. I like the fact that you made the venue fit the space versus making the space kind of fit the venue. I think everything else we were looking at was oversized and really didn't fit the location. I think it made it very apparent to me by the picture that you designed from up above, where we could really see Muller Plaza and what would happen by putting something in the corner there. But I also like the fact that what you were designing can be used for other things, and if it's not in use, we could potentially still have the restaurant use that space. I think it would look absolutely fine. So I think we've got a process we're going to have to go through. I mean, working in municipal government and we're a municipality, so there's a process we're going to go through. I think this gives us great ideas. I love what you've designed, and I hope that going forward, Oneonta can potentially, have this design move forward.
If anybody
Thank you
else-
for your comments.
Council, Ed, Ruby?
I like the first one too. That's really all I have to say. I like that the fact that the reference to the RV.
Thank you.
So Kevin, as Councilmember Risberger was saying, there's a process that we'll need to go through. Can you give us a sense, as you do work in municipal government, of what your sense of the next steps might be from your perspective?
I can. I'm going to actually defer to Andrew on this, since he's actually involved in building and planning and some of the things. And if you can offer just your comments on this, Andrew. I mean, RFP is in order here. Am I correct? With prevailing wage and all that type of municipal items, right? Is this? I'd have to completely understand where the city of Oneonta would stand on their process, and then I can really answer you very accurately. We are prepared to, and this is where, Andrew, I want you to step in terms of, you know, blueprinting or designing and, you know, getting it down so that it can be built, if that's one of the questions that are being asked.
Yeah, we're fully capable of taking this to construction documents, shop drawings, bidding it out to you know, multiple contractors to bid. Obviously, you have your procurement process, and that'll be relevant for contracting services, but also perhaps for design services, depending on how that's constructed. I'll defer to the town to solve that, but in terms of the technical next steps moving forward, once we're a go and we have a structure in place, we can move into a kind of a design development where we make sure that we have the elements that we want. We start to tackle the technical questions in a way to make sure we're not leaving anything out, and really get it to the point where it's fabricatable, and we can start to put some real numbers on it. You know, because it's, you know, this is not a full-scale building with all of the design process and trades that entails. It's a relatively discrete object, and so, you know, there is some development that needs to happen, some small complexities, but I think we can get pretty quickly towards being able to get shops and quotes and really move towards fabrication.
Thank you. I want to bring our city administrator, Greg Mattice, who would be most intimately involved in the RFP process, just into the conversation, if I could.
Specifically, what our RFP process is for, so for design, anything over $20,000 for design needs to be a formal RFP unless that's waived by the council. They can waive that for any amount for professional services. Below 20,000 requirement.
So
I'm
I think
sorry, we
that
can't quite hear you there.
if Greg could throw a mic next one, we heard a little bit of that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Better? Okay, sorry about that. So our RFP process for professional services such as engineering, architecture, $20,000 and above will require a formal RFP or RFQ unless the council waives that, which they can do for any reason. Otherwise, below 20,000 requires multiple written proposals too, at least.
Okay.
For construction, 35,000 and above is a formal public bid. Anything less than that, there's a few different levels, but it requires formal written quotes.
Very good. I understand that. While we're on finance, I think some of you know I started a GoFundMe. I am fully committed to trying to reach that goal. I purposely, obviously, waited for this meeting so that we got a sense of where we might be going. To me, once people visualize what could be happening there and the coordination of all that are involved here, I think we start to talk to donors. To be very frank, you know, musicians at a higher stature that were so inspired by Al that can quite literally give a little bit more money. Raising money is not easy. We're in an interesting climate, as everybody knows. Al's been gone 15 years, and hey, it's just, if it was, we know that, people's emotions are highest at certain times in life or post life. But I've never been more committed to making this work. So I want everybody to understand that.
Okay, Kevin, I've got Katie Lepore shoe again. Did you say-
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you brought up the financing, because I know, that we are trying to figure out what the city's role in this might be. And, if there is a commitment to have this funded from outside sources, then, we wouldn't necessarily have to follow the RFP process or those things. It would be basically like a gift at that point to the city that council would have to accept. And it's going on public property, so I'm sure that there are some hoops to jump through there, but, yeah, so I think we need to figure that out maybe sooner rather than later.
Mhm.
Um,
Everything comes a little more into focus when we have a final number, or at least a range. Then it really becomes much more focused in efforts and in procurement.
So again, I guess, my question would be regarding timeline, because we're in fact looking at some timeline issues.
All ARPA funds have to be obligated by the end of 2024, meaning contracts in place. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. ARPA funds need to be obligated by the end of 2024, so we've got a year and a month.
Okay,
Plenty of time
Excellent.
for this project. I would.
great, good news.
Well, unless there are other questions or comments from council, are there? Folks, very, very much appreciate all of the effort, all of the creativity, the commitment and the love, especially Kevin, that you've got for your grandfather. It's heartwarming, and I appreciate your time here today. So thank you.
We appreciate it as well. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Carrie, am I just, okay, you're taking me off. Thank you so much.
Rest of it? Okay. There will be conversation. In the meantime, though, let's move on to our petitioners. Have we any petitioners in the gallery? And if we do, if you would just introduce yourself and tell us where you live.
I'm Susan Lettuce. I live on Union Street. I just wanted to stop by today. I wanted to participate in some discussions that have been had at subcommittee levels about alcohol in the public parks. And I wanted to make sure you heard from me, and maybe others think this too, but it is absolutely okay to just not have alcohol in public parks. A lot of other municipalities don't allow alcohol in public parks, and it's totally fine. And I want to make sure that point is considered while these discussions are going on. I don't think council should feel that they have to bend over backwards to figure out how to accommodate, alcohol consumption in our public parks. If you are considering alcohol, I think you should require insurance and also a licensed bartender, a professional caterer who's licensed with the state to serve the alcohol. Any other venue would require that. Right now, from what I understand, the city is not requiring insurance. You guys require insurance for a lot less than that. So I think you really need to consider that if you want to have, people to have the ability to have alcohol in public parks. It's become, I think it's clear it's an enforcement issue for, city staff, for code enforcement, for the OPD, for the police department, OPD, sorry. So there's just a lot of other issues that you could get away from if you just mix it. And then I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting.
Thank you very much, Susan. Have we? Anybody else who'd like to?
Possibly.
And you would be?
Good evening. I'm Julie Dostal. I'm the Executive Director of the League Council on Alcoholism and Addictions. Shocking that we're here at the same time, right? Our address is at 189 Main Street, just so that you know, we're a downtown business. And I just first want to say I'm very excited about this. I'm a musician and I've played a few outdoor concerts, and there are times when I was so sorry I did. But this will make it very nice. I actually got to do a couple of jam sessions with Al, so this is very, very special. Yes, it is. About alcohol in the parks, thank you for the opportunity to be a petitioner tonight. I just wanted to say that I agree, and that a couple of things I'm concerned about alcohol in the park, and as long as you're considering restricting that, I thought it was appropriate for me to come share. I'm concerned about underage consumption and who checks on underage consumption. I'm sure that the people who provide the parties and provide the alcohol are supposed to be responsible for that. And I just wonder, I don't know what the rules are around assuring that when alcohol is served in a pavilion, that it's not, that minors aren't available or aren't able to get a hold of it. So that's another thing, is that who is responsible if minors are consuming, who is the responsible party at the party if minors are consuming. So I don't know the answer to that. I also very much support the idea of alcohol-free, substance-free public parks. This council made a really wonderful decision several years back to be a smoke-free park. And I would say that alcohol consumption within the park probably causes much more damage than cigarette butts did. Although you probably made smoke-free parks for the purpose of public health, I would submit that reducing people's alcohol consumption at large parties is a public health issue as well. And as someone who is in an agency that does large events in the park without alcohol and without problems that arise from alcohol consumption, and I don't see people walking away from these very large events in the park that we are part of because alcohol's not there. So I'm just saying that I don't think people make decisions about coming to the park based on whether alcohol is available or not. So I encourage you to think about the idea, or to keep considering the idea of just an alcohol-free space. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, both of you, and speaking on this issue. I have a follow-up question for you, which is a practical one. At Damascus Field during games, alcohol is served, and I know that that's a big part of the so in your estimation, what would that look like? I know what you would prefer, but I think if you could speak to the practicality of not allowing, private entities to have alcohol and then serving alcohol at Damascus Field, how do you see that work?
I think that it's very different for a business that has a license and has responsibility for the alcohol that it serves to be in the park. And they actually have a discrete section of the park. Do they allow people to walk out of the park with us? So that is a very discrete section of the park. It's a business. They have responsibilities. That's very different than kind of these open air pavilions where people come and go. And, if law enforcement shows up, down go the drinks, and people kind of filter out and filter away, and there's no way for anybody to know who had been consuming. So I think there's a big difference between business and private gathering. Yeah, absolutely.
And I see we have others in the gallery. Anybody else? Yes.
So Jonathan Terrace, 26 College Terrace.
Yes.
So now going house to house to all my neighbors and being to multiple meetings about this, The water quality up there on College Terrace, Suncrest Terrace, and Overlook has been overlooked. Apparently it's been brought up here multiple times. I've now had multiple of my neighbors show me their water. There's no reason for it to ever come out brown. They pay for water. If my neighbor's water is coming out brown, there is a problem. The city needs to take care of it. The fact that it has not, it's been raised here multiple times, I've been told in the past. Now, I would like to know what the city plans on doing about this. Are they going to refund them for sending out bad water? I mean, they shouldn't be forced to pay for a product because you're not gonna let my neighbors drill wells. I know that for a fact. So again, why are they forced to pay for a product that is not good? I would like to know that.
I appreciate that. I think we've probably addressed it a handful of times here. I can probably send you correspondence that would be a little bit more detailed than anything we can provide you at the moment, if that would be all right with you. Okay. Have we anybody else in the gallery that would like to speak? Okay. And do we have any correspondence? We have no correspondence, and you know what that means? Our meeting is done. No, it doesn't. We will now move to our boards. Well, Scott would say, yeah. Boards and commission reports, and we'll start off with the Board of Public Service and Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor. We met on November 2nd at 4 o'clock. All members were in attendance. First item on the business got tabled. They're waiting for further information. The second one on the agenda, 1014 High Street, was trash removal. Our codes department had to go remove a mattress on the side of a house. They upheld the fee, which is like $160 by the time you take it, get rid of it, and all that good stuff. The third one on our agenda was tabled because the petitioner was sick. And they want to give ample time for them to get better to come in front of us. The fourth one was tabled. See how this is going? I'm getting off easy this. And then 18 Grand Street, the person they waived the fees for mowing and trash because there was a squatter incident there. And before they could having to get there and the safety and stuff like that. So where the city could kind of show up with law enforcement on their back, they tried to help the homeowner out a little bit, which was nice to see. Yep. And then we had a quick water main extension in Ben Gunther's property over where we did the Stewart's, where he's doing all that. The Board of Public Service has passed the motion, and I didn't see that the motion was on the thing. I looked real quick. I didn't see it there, but where they are all right allowing the contractor to pre-bury the water main, as long as they have a third party or one of our people there to inspect it. It will not be hooked up. It's just going to be there so that they can pave the road, and then they can make final connections if that project gets signed off on through us. This is also part of where we're trying to get the water district through. So I don't know where we stand with that. I never asked that question in the meeting. And then we adjourned after that. So.
Very good. Okay, very good. Thank you, Scott. And we'll move on to our Parks and Rec Commission meeting and Katie Shoot.
Okay, Parks met yesterday. We had two young women from the Women's Oneonta Rugby Football Club, which they pronounce WARF, which is Susan Panapa they say up there. They are hosting a fall festival on November 18th from 11:30 to 4:50. 4:50. That's very specific. 4:30. 11:30 to 4:30. November 18th, Field 3 in Newell Park. It's a family event, free admission, but they'll be accepting donations. Their purpose is to connect with the community and just get some exposure for their club. So it's a community event. They're going to host a bake sale and have games and the committee was, or the commission was in support of that. We went over the parks report as we usually do, some highlights from that. The hot cocoa run, was just took place recently. Traffic safety was discussed and the plan to try to keep 5Ks within the park bounds in the future. And basically just to make recommendations to organizations that do decide to go outside of the park to have, lots of safety and traffic control signs and devices in order to, prevent any potential conflicts with vehicles. The dog park will have the same winter rules as last year, in fact, so, both sides of the dog park will remain open until 2.5 inches of snow, and the large dog park will be closed for the remainder of the season, and all dogs will go into the small dog park. The path, which has been recently paved, will not be plowed, but there will be shovels available, for people who use the dog park to clear. Damascus Field, I was surprised to hear this. There have been 4 break-ins in the last 2 months at the concession stand and the Trailways office. I'm told that there is some discussion into purchasing some cameras for that area. And feeding deer. Signs have gone up about not feeding deer at both pavilions in Wilbur Park. Park winterization has begun. Trash cans and benches are picked up or are being picked up, and the porta potties for the season. Skate park event happened. Spooky skate jam was the weekend before Halloween. Reports that there were lots of people. It was a good turnout. Club Odyssey sponsored that, and there were no injuries reported. Mostly nice weather. 20 to 30 participants, ages 9 to 50. We discussed alcohol in the park pavilions. Found out that from the Quality of Life Committee that the deposit did not act as a deterrent. 3 out of the 4 permits issued since we adopted that policy in late August. My throat is so dry. They lost their deposit. Excuse me. The Parks Commission recommends keeping the $500 deposit and having a deed restriction that was discussed. That's it.
So I'm gonna give you a second, but Len will have the first question once you're settled.
I'm great.
What was the results of the hot cocoa run? Meaning, did the runners enjoy the new layout?
So 2 of the members of the commission actually ran the hot cocoa run, and they said it was a great event.
That's a good segue. I actually went down there and just wanted to thank Chris for overseeing that project. I went down to Catilla Park earlier today, and Blacktop was amazing, and nice job.
Emma?
I have another question. I'm curious about the alcohol in the parks thing. So, I'm wondering, kind of first, what was the reason why the last few people that checked out a pavilion did not receive their deposit back? I guess I'll start there.
Yeah, so excessive garbage and some facility disrespect.
Interesting, because I'm just kind of like, so I'm also looking at this, like, I got married in a public park, right? And, we had some champagne and it was very nice. This was in Ithaca, and it was like a really sweet little ceremony. And I feel like having a 0 tolerance thing, I don't know, I feel like then, it prevents nice things from happening in your park too. Like alcohol doesn't always have to be a bad thing. I'm wondering, what are these events that are happening in the park that are resulting in this kind of disruption?
We're not wedding.
We're not weddings, not, graduation parties or.
They're at,
Yeah.
They're not celebrations or family celebrations. But I think we've come up with one possible solution. It was from Memorial Day to
August 31st. Yeah, and the commission is in favor of that, having that as well.
What do you mean? What is?
Oh, so keeping the $500 deposit and then adding the date restriction of the weekend before Memorial Day to August 31st. And you can rent the pavilion at any time, but that would just be the restriction of all rentals in the pavilion, over the summer months.
I mean, again, I got married in October, you know, I don't know. I'm wondering if there's like other restrictions you can maybe put on it, like an additional deposit if there's over a certain amount of people or, but I also understand that it comes down to enforcement. I don't wanna take up our whole night with this. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot to consider with it. Like, we also want our parks to be an inviting place where people can have a nice event that, you know, maybe it doesn't include alcohol, maybe it does. I don't know. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we can discuss it later.
Well, I was just gonna suggest, Dave is the chairman of the committee, but it'd be a great opportunity for you guys to come to the quality of life and we could have a full out discussion about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a good segue to the quality of life and infrastructure committee meeting.
Yes, thank you. We met on October 30th and we had a very full agenda. First was the Public Arts Master Plan. We, after some back and forth with that and making some changes, the final action is it's been forwarded to council for approval. Film permits. The discussion really circulated around pyrotechnics, and we had some options on making some changes to accommodate pyrotechnics in the film permit. And then we got sidetracked with other things on the agenda, and we ended up not going back to talk about film permits. So that is going to be, it was going to be a continued discussion anyway, to be fair. We're going to be bringing that back next month, because that'll be the first thing we talk about. Then was the Parks Pavilion rental policy. So as of now, as you've all heard, it's a $500 deposit plus an application fee of $25. There were other issues. There were issues, as what Katie was saying, that existed, but also there were issues with noise, and the police were under the impression that they couldn't deal with that noise and reduce the noise since it was issued. We had some discussion. We discovered that's not necessarily true, but it's hard to determine who's making the noise, and who do you ticket them. So the alcohol permits in the park have been a loophole for certain groups to have parties outside of their own home. And the number of alcohol permits issued last year, I believe, was 20. And that was from May 5th through October 7th. So we had some discussion about requiring someone with a liquor license to provide alcohol, but we thought that was going to be too much of a burden for families if families were going to go there to have a wedding or some other event. But we also don't have park staff to regulate this, and how would OPD regulate it as well. So after a long discussion, this was more than just one meeting day of discussion too. There was multiple meetings about this. What we are recommending is that the alcohol permits are provided from Saturday of Memorial Day weekend through August 31st. So we're pushing it to Parks and Rec, through Katie to get their opinion, which you've all heard so far. And that will be brought back to our committee next month. And there's more. The Historical Society had an application for historic markers at the former Oneon Sales Building and the Armory Building. So the Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission recommends both of these. There's no cost to the city. They're applying for a grant to help pay for this. So the action was that to have a council motion for the mayor to send a letter agreeing to their recommendations, and that I believe is on our agenda tonight. Their application letter, I believe, is due late December. Is that right? Okay. There was some discussion about the intersection of Chestnut Street and North Fonda Ave. That's in front of Nick's Diner. There was a letter with 50 to 60 signatures concerned about that intersection. DPW suggested we hire a consultant to evaluate the area, and speed limit is 30 miles per hour through there. The police chief says not many accidents occurred at that location. The last one was from about 20 years ago. So there was discussion about having a consultant look at other intersections as well, such as West Street and Center Street. So the action was to agree to go out to bid for consultants to give us a formal evaluation on this intersection, possibly others as well. There was also a request about having additional handicap parking spaces. There was one for 42 Maple Street, where a resident requested this. They have a driveway, and it's not a rental. They were requesting this on the street. 21 Otsego Street. This was a tenant who has a daughter who's disabled, and the owner uses the driveway, so the tenant is unable to use it. Deep Streets, this was in front of the Lost Building. Someone that does not live in the Lost Building made a recommendation to have one near the ramp that's in front of the building. And then also Deep Street parking lot, someone wanted one closer to the Lost Building. And we determined there's 2 handicap parking spaces behind the Lost Building. There's a total of 6 in that parking lot. On the Beach Street parking lot, the action was DPW will talk with management, and we are recommending that residents talk to management, who can then approach us if they feel that we need more handicap spaces. As far as the other three areas go, the Maple Street, Otsego Street, and in front of the Lofts, there was quite a bit of discussion about that, and we decided that for now, we're not going to move forward with it, but Councilman Davies and I will look at ADA guidelines, and the committee can discuss further at the next meeting to see if we want to go further with it. Okay, 27 Market Street temporary parking lot regulations. That has since been striked, I believe. There's 49 spaces total. Let's see here. We're going to be allowing temporarily anyway, Casella and Logan's to place their dumpsters in the northwest corner of the parking lot. Long term, those haulers are going to have to find a different spot for private trash. Private trash is a private issue to deal with if and when that lot is sold. The regulations that we're recommending on that lot is a 24-hour maximum to bring that to council, so that's on tonight's agenda also. And that makes it also easier to enforce. There was another issue about a tree at the corner of Maple and Center Street. If you're on Center Street eastbound, the tree blocks the view from the north on Maple Street, and it's a very large tree. So the choice is either to cut the tree down or add a no turn on red. Action on that was no determination of whether it's really an issue yet. So our city administrator is going to add the intersection to surveying that for a turning count first, and then it will come back to the committee. We don't want to have knee-jerk reactions about traffic. And the last one was a deer management coordinator. As we all know, that was something we were looking to have done, have a volunteer or a hire. And there was an individual, the name was not brought forward, but an individual was mentioned who's willing to take on the position. When our Councilman Carson is going to get back to us and discuss this with the individual, bring them the Deer Task Force plan, and ask them to attend the next quality of life and infrastructure meeting. But we also know that the mayor has another name, so I believe we're going to be discussing this later. And that's all I have.
That's all. Yes.
One quick question, just regarding the parking at the 27th Street, 27 Market Street lot. With the 24-hour maximum parking, is that Monday through Friday, or is that every day of the week?
That's a good question. Right? 3 days a week.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so I know the gigantic tree that you're talking about, and it is an evergreen tree. My question is, could the tree just be like cut back a little bit rather than being cut down?
we talked about that too. We thought was it's such a big tree and it's so close to the intersection. The only way to make it work is you basically you're cutting a massive hole on the bottom.
Yeah,
of the tree.
Your one
Yeah.
side.
I would hate to see it go.
It's after everything that NICEAG did in many
They did it to my.
different neighborhoods throughout the city with trees. I would hesitate to do that, but I don't want to go there yet because after here we can go people see what Greg comes up with.
Sure.
And maybe we don't have to do anything in this case. It never should have been planted there.
Okay, well, I'm interested as someone who lives nearby to see what happens there. Yeah. I mean, like, it's dangerous. Okay, thank you.
Else? Okay, thank you very much. All right, now moving back to Councilmember LaPerry Shu and our Finance and Human Resources Committee report.
Got too comfortable. All right, finance met. I've had a lot of sips of water, so hopefully I can make it through this. Finance met on Thursday, the second. We have several motions on the agenda. We didn't go through them in the order that we discussed in that. So we have motion number 7, which is the appointment of a maintenance worker. It's a budgeted vacancy, and if approved, will begin tomorrow. Motion number 8, the transit coordinator temporary appointment. This is a provisional employee under kind of a specific circumstance. But the idea is that we would be able to put that into this title and make this work under this title, which is significantly similar to the work that they have been doing. And then at a time that they're able to leave. The idea is to hire them permanently to the original position pending the results of their civil service. We had a brief discussion on the civil service rules. There's no motion or anything, that was just for our information. Motions 9 and 10. So the recommendation is to go with Great Lakes. You see that on the agenda. And motion number 10, the budget comes from the Community Beautification Reserve. They have 180 days to complete the project, but the contractor is expecting to complete the work by the end of November. We were provided with a map of the trees that are doing the tree and stops. Motion number 13, DPW equipment for surplus. If anybody has any questions about any of those, we can go over that. I'm gonna save that for last. Motion number 12, the internship for the fire department with the CMO BOCES. This is something that had happened before. Right?
Correct.
Yes, okay, cool, thank you. I wanted to make sure I was remembering that correctly.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, so we're kind of going back to that. It's job shadowing pretty much. Great in my estimation. For building relationships. Motion number 6 is a firefighter healthcare worker bonus. It is $39,000 that is basically passed on to our fire department from the state. We had discussion on wastewater treatment plant. We had talked at our previous meeting about septic hauling, and so we had a guest chief wastewater treatment plant operator, Chris Pellegra, came and discussed septic solid acceptance. Basically, we can make money on solid, but we spend that money treating, and it's sort of a shock to the system. So ultimately, taking on more septic is not advised at this time. Motion number 11, the airport consultant contract. This is a new company. We've been with Brown Johnson for 10 years, and this company that is being reported out of quality. We received a contract negotiation update from our human resources director. And we also had a pretty big discussion and presentation from Chief Knapp on fire department apparatus and what we're going to do on that. Any questions?
Motion 13. Is there a reason why this is here? Because I was trying to remember the last time we actually saw apparatus listed.
Listed, right. Answer to that. Usually it just says Well, no, we get a schedule. Don't we usually get a schedule, like a attachment? Yeah.
The policy was changed. Any equipment that is valued over $10,000 or more, the council has to approve. Anything that's under $10,000, the city administrator is able to approve, and we don't have to bring that to council.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. And Councilmember Davies, so sorry for missing the meeting last night, Community Wellness.
Thank you, Mayor. So we met last night, Mayor Smith, and we finalized our follow-up meeting for food and security, meeting with different stakeholders in food and security. So it's now December 12th from 3 to 4:30. And Councilmember Murphy has already crafted a letter. We'll be getting out to our community partners in this, and hope to have another robust discussion. And we also at that point talked about our children, teen health and wellness, but we figured we were going to prioritize food and security in this particular meeting. We also talked about something we're calling kind of statement of principles. Councilman Lepari Shu kind of brought this up, and after I think 2 meetings of discussion, we arrived at some language that we are going to report to you, Greg, for discussion at our next meeting. And also discussion would be how we want to kind of approach that. And what it is basically a reflection of what our principles are with relation to community wellness. So we have, well, I'll let you read the draft language whenever it comes out, because we did kind of tinker a little bit from what was originally in the minutes. But basically it tries to prioritize community wellness, mental well-being, environmental well-being, and part working together first. So it's kind of a guiding principle that we thought we should kind of codify in a recommendation similar to what a purchasing policy might be. So that will be coming forward at the next meeting for discussion. We also had a conversation about public storage lockers for unhoused people. And this was something that was brought forward as a potential idea, and looking at ways in which we might be able to provide some type of storage locker for folks. The committee agreed that it was worth looking into further, so we're going to begin to do some research in other municipalities that have similar programs or similar conveniences for folks, and then bring that to our December 4th meeting where we'll have another conversation. And then lastly, we had an update from Chief Knapp regarding community care medicine. Thank you.
So the summer? December 2nd?
3 to 4:30, we backed it into the a little bit more to the work day, hoping that would be a little bit better for our community partners. In the past, we've had 4 to 5:30, but we backed it into 3 to 4:30. Yeah, I did want to play with that, bouncing off that. Len, I'm almost done. I sent the draft letter invitation to Katie and Mark. I'll be sure to include council on it, so you guys have the invitation. Hopefully I'll work with Carrie to get a Zoom invite. Yeah, so on that point, our mailing list is our mailing list, right? So if there's any other groups that you think should be present, certainly send an invitation folks if you would like to get more people to say.
Because I think we could probably combine the list. If you send it to me, then I'll look at the list of what we've created.
Yeah, and that's one thing we also wanted to talk with your committee also about the storage lockers. So we might want to kind of have a conversation there. So maybe if you don't know what to do, but if you want to have a member at our next December 4th meeting where we can, we're going to be doing kind of homework on that. We can bring that forward and just include you all in that discussion. But yes, and you certainly are all invited to that. And if there's recommendations, you're all invited to the conversation. If there's recommendations that we should act. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will move on to our city administrator's report.
There. You'll remember the public safety building HVAC controls upgrade. A few meetings ago, as slated to start early December, should be completed within about 2 months. New York State DOT inspects bridges, anything defined as a bridge 20-foot span or more, including those in the city. Their recent inspection of the Gulf Ave Bridge, which goes over on that bridge, revealed the deficiency in the concrete wall. So we had a contractor both on construction and comes out Thanks for repairs to that concrete wall. They worked on that today. They'll be hopefully completing that by the end of the day tomorrow, but it has resulted in some temporary traffic disruption. Gulf Ave, obviously, is a one-way street from Main to Center. We've just implemented temporary road closure at the bridge, and it's two-way traffic for local traffic only there. Upper Wilbur basketball court, I think I mentioned it was paved. The poles are in. Hoops will be installed soon. Once it's getting a little cold for basketball sooner than later. Maybe not. But striping will be done next year when the weather is more appropriate for that. Although speaking of striping, there is still some pavement markings work that will be completed this year in the city as far as crosswalks and that sort of striping. I would mention the Newell 5K race course with paving was complete. I'm not sure that I don't believe they used the entirely in the park 5K race course for the Coco run. They did use that for a couple other races earlier this year. That might be something they switch to in the future. So we'll see how that goes. I took a walk down there and saw some people that otherwise wouldn't be walking past the well or walking along the well. Very nice. We had our regular monthly town shared services meeting with Randy Mowers, Supervisor Mowers, and Highway Superintendent Jim Hurtubise. Discussed a number of ongoing initiatives and projects we're working with the town on. You'll remember we approved an intermunicipal agreement with the town regarding the Route 23 and 28 project. The town board approved that as well, and that's been signed. We'll have a progress meeting coming up. Fire protection and ambulance service agreements that we approved, the council did, are going to the town board meeting tomorrow night. In conjunction with their town budget for 2024, so we expect those to be signed thereafter. We've been discussing a West End water district with the town. That's for the west end of Oneonta in the town, where the city currently provides water service. We have provided a map to the town attorney, who is a map of our existing infrastructure. The town attorney will be drafting a initial district document that we'll be reviewing. So moving forward on that. It was mentioned by Scott, the Ben Gunther's property off of Oneida Street. The Board of Public Service approved the 8-inch water main loop there. So that will be disrupted. I understand they're looking for that. City take that over. It will be in the town right away. Another city-owned water main in the town. Scott mentioned no connections to that main have been approved. Those would have to come back through the Board of Public Service if and when there's actual development, specific development plan or proposed. We're also discussing the town, their interest and some businesses' interest in East End water and sewer extensions along Route 7. Currently, the city's water main extends past Maytag, which is about the city-town line, extends to Anudos. The town has been in discussions with some of their businesses that are further east from that and might be interested in connecting to city water or receiving some sort of water. And they're they hired an engineer, the town did, to do a map plan review for what that process might entail, what that project might need to be. So you can expect to hear more from that in the coming months. Our old bucket truck, we discussed that. It's on the agenda tonight to be approved for surplus. Although the town of Oneonta is interested in purchasing that from us, we could make arrangements to have an intermunicipal agreement with them to sell it to them directly rather than on surplus. The advantage to this would be, obviously, we have a good working relationship with the town. We share lots of services with them, specifically Highway Department and our DPW. So with us having a new bucket truck, they were to buy our old bucket truck. One of our bucket truck goes down, we have one to borrow from the other. So there might be, a reason for us to consider selling it to the town. So public auctions, or we could discuss with them, see their price, and bring that back to council for approval. We'll determine the best. We've also been discussing a brush and yard waste program, or we each have our respective brush and yard waste programs. The city's been discussing through the budget process how that might change. It's been clear to the council that the city would like to keep our brush and yard waste program the way it is, perhaps enhance it as part of having more frequent or 7-day-a-week drop-off ability at the Silas Lane location. But we're open to implementing a fee for drop-off and curbside collection for brush and yard waste. So discussing that with the town, they have similar interest, and they're also interested in possibly combining the brush pile location at Silas Lane. So we're going to continue talking about that. and see if that's something that makes sense for both municipalities. The budget adoption process, tonight Ginny has laid on the desks, council, the tentative budget. Memo. Changes that were made to the draft budget are very few. They're outlined in her memo. They are based on the discussion we had in council last meeting. This will theoretically be voted on, the tentative budget, on the November 21st. Changes to the tentative budget at that meeting would require a council vote to change a particular line item in the budget. Also to be laid, or maybe it is laid, not yet, to be laid on your desks is a local law to exceed the tax cap. This would also be voted on the 21st if the council intends to exceed the tax cap. What has been included in the tentative budget as requested by the council is going to the tax cap, not exceeding. So that is a change from the draft budget. If the council discussed and decided we want to exceed the tax cap, this local law would be. So laying it now gives you the option to vote on it if you decide that's what you want to do at the 21st meeting. So it doesn't obligate the council to anything at this point.
I just want to recap that. So the numbers in front of us are for 2.9%. It's for 2.9%.
Roughly, if you want to call it that. The percentage might have changed just slightly, Jenny, but it's the tax cap.
To go over the tax caps, 2/3. Council, 2/3 of the council has to approve it. Right?
And just to finish up a couple of things on the budget adoption process, after voting on the tentative budget on the 21st, there will be a public hearing on presumably the 28th. If there's a local law passed to exceed the tax cap, there will be a public hearing on that. There will also, no matter what, be a public hearing on the budget. And it's interesting that in the case of the local law to exceed the tax cap, the vote happens first and then the public hearing happens. In the case of the budget, you're voting to approve the tentative budget, then there's a public hearing, and then you vote on December 5th to finally approve the budget. So it's a little bit of a lot of dates, a lot of steps, but that's what's in front of us.
Are you going to send us an email that lists all that out?
I can resend it. No, that was sent. Was it in your memo? One of the memos that Jean sent.
Fine, I'll look at it. It's fine.
The last thing I had was the auditor's report. Typically this time of year or a little bit earlier, we would have had the auditor's presentation before council meeting. Canceled that day when we were scheduled to present. It's not a requirement to present. We shared the final report. If you're interested in having an in-person or a Zoom presentation, we can do that. Another option would be just to have the auditors send a summary of what they would have presented. Another option that would be just any questions you may have from having reviewed the audit report. And share those through my administrative report or
We were presented the audit material a month or so ago. We've had ample time to come up with questions. I think that the council really wanted to come up with questions.
We cancel on them. I would suggest that we have some reviews, which can put the questions if needed, but some would be sufficient. And yeah, we've had that report for a while. Anybody have a different?
Anything else? Yes.
So with regard to the bucket truck, we have it as a motion on 13. Should we amend that motion to remove that so that you have the ability to discuss that? Or if we do include that in the motion, can you still pull it off and have that?
I think you could pass the motion as written.
It wouldn't preclude us from coming back with another motion to enter. This is just approving this, it's not selling it in the paper. Stuff we were still go to auction. Will hold on the auction.
So we ascertain whether it makes sense to sell it now. So I don't think we have to.
Any further questions?
Yes.
I just have I guess a legal question. I was just reading over the local law. In section 2, it says, override property tax cap of coming fiscal year by adoption of local law approved by a vote of 60% of said governing body. I know we're small, but my calculations is 5/8 is 62.5%. Is a super majority still 5/8, 5 out of 8 of us, or is it 6 out of 8? 6 out of 8. Oh, even though it's over 60%, 5/8 is over 60%. My understanding is 6 out of 8. Okay. Thank you.
So Greg, do we have a, do we have a timeline on regards to the West End Water District? We've been talking about this for a while now, and I thought we were close.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we have map.
Right now, it's not on our side, it's on their desk.
Okay, thank you, Craig. As far as my remarks, first I just want to again publicly thank Corey Shu, who stepped in these last dozen days. Didn't have much to do, which is nice, but it's nice to know you were here. So I have to be for that length of time for concerns. So thank you very much. And I just want to say it is election day, and to all of those council members who are running unopposed, I think I can say on behalf of the city, thank you for your continuing commitment. And those folks that are running opposed, good luck. Go all in the room, and to those who are going to just lose it until January 1. Thank you for continuing to hang out with us. Much appreciated. And for those who are not continuing with us, thank you so much for your service. And with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. With the approval of the warrants, motion that the common council approves the warrants totaling $1,204,675.48, and that the same be placed on the Director of Finance's desk for payment as presented. Motion number 2, that the common council approves an ordinance modifying chapter 300-58 of the City of Oneonta Municipal Code entitled Walls and Fences. This ordinance was laid electronically on October 26th, 2023. Motion number 3, that the common council, in accordance with chapter 8, subsection 7 of the City of Oneonta Municipal Code, adopts the Public Arts Master Plan dated October 30, 2023, as presented. Motion number 4, that the common council authorizes the mayor to send a letter to the Greater Oneonta Historical Society in support of their application for funding for the installation of historic markers for the Oneonta Armory and the Oneonta Sales Building on city-owned property. The proposed location of the historical marker at the Armory is in front of the building on the southeast corner at the intersection of Academy and Fairview Streets in proximity to the flagpole. The proposed location of the historical marker at the Oneonta Sales Building is 27 to 33 Market Street in the northwest corner of Market Street and Chestnut Street Extension intersection within the city easement. Motion number 5, that the common council creates subsection E of 282-33 parking time limits on city streets to be known as subsection E 27 Market Street parking lot. with subsection 1 to read, parking is permitted in the 27 Market Street parking lot as follows. All parking spaces throughout will be posted 24-hour maximum parking. Motion number 6, that the Common Council approves the following budget amendments for the receipt of funds from the New York State Health Care and Mental Hygiene Worker Bonus, HWB program, which was to recognize the efforts of our healthcare workforce during the COVID public health crisis. It's an increase of A.3410.1 personal services, $39,000. An increase of A.3489 state aid other health, $39,000. Motion number 7, that the Common Council approves the city administrator's appointment of Matthew Hitchcock to the position of maintenance worker at a base annual salary of $38,500, CSEA salary grade 3, effective November 8, 2023, subject to the satisfaction of all applicable civil service requirements. Motion number 8, that the Common Council approves the city administrator's appointment of Wayne Hubbard to the position of transit coordinator at a base annual salary of $50,000, CSEA salary grade 6, effective November 8, 2023, subject to the satisfaction of all applicable civil service requirements. Motion number 9, that the Common Council approves the purchasing agent's recommendation to award the bid for the 2023 tree removal and maintenance bid to Great Lakes Tree Services Incorporated of Greenhurst, New York, in the amount of $79,027.10. Motion number 10, that the Common Council adopts a budget within the Community Landscaping Fund for the 2023 tree removal and maintenance services as follows. Increase appropriations CM 05.8730.463, professional services, $90,000. Increase revenues CM 05.2652, sale of forest products, $90,000. Motion 11, that the Common Council authorizes the city administrator to enter into a contract with Passero Associates, Albany, New York, for on-call professional consulting services, including engineering, architecture, and planning services for the Albert S. Nader Regional Airport for a 5-year period from November 8, 2023 to November 8, 2028. Motion number 12, that the Common Council authorizes the city administrator to enter an internship agreement with the Delaware Shenango Madison Otsego BOCES to allow the Oneonta Fire Department to host and furnish instruction to students participating in the DCMO BOCES and career destinations programs. The term of this agreement shall be 1 year, commencing November 8, 2023, and ending November 7, 2024. And shall be automatically renewed for up to 4 additional 1-year terms unless terminated sooner per the agreement. This agreement is subject to review by the city attorney. The Common Council further authorizes the fire chief to sign work experience agreements with each participating student, intern, and their respective school officials. And motion number 13, that the Common Council declares the following items as surplus and authorizes the purchasing agent to dispose of same by listing for sale with the Auctions International or by possible intermunicipal agreements. A 1987 CAT 120G road grader, number 185. 2011 Weiler paver, PV2. A 1993 Moore chipper, number 240. A 2012 Versalift bucket truck, number 333, and a 2017 Cherokee, number 220, and that ends our discussion, and rather our consent agenda. Do we have any? Oh, Len, what?
Number 2 and number 11.
Number 2.
Number 8, please.
Number 8. Okay, and with that, do I have a motion to approve the balance of the top, followed by Katie and
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Lisberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Panucci? Aye. Councilmember Carson?
Aye.
Councilmember Ham.
Yes.
Councilmember Ogilvy.
Yes.
Councilmember Crawford.
Okay, moving on to motion number 2. Do I have a motion to approve? Len, followed by Emily, and Len, you pull this?
Just wanted to flush this out a little bit. I had sent an email to Steve asking for some clarity in the gallery tonight. With the CMU or the concrete masonry unit, I just want to make sure that we're not going to be excluding landscaping block, because that seems to be used a lot in our communities. We are living on a hill and people tier their driveways right to the sidewalk, and then the height, I just wanted to go back over the height. I thought we had talked that we were gonna raise the fence to 8 feet because there's been information about deer that they cannot jump over 8 feet, but 7 feet they have the ability. I just wanted you guys to flesh all that out at the legislative level.
Yeah, let me respond to that, Len, and certainly you guys can help out as need, but with regard to the concrete block, that was not strictly discussed, so I don't not respond to that. Other than to say, I don't think it's seamless fencing, so I don't know that that would be a problem. It might be seen in a different light, but you said you did send that in to Steve.
Yeah, and just comment that it's block, but I also had a question about number 4, where it only says a building permit is not required for the installation of a fence, but this zoning is for walls and fences, so he said he was going to suggest adding the walls onto that number, but he's not here tonight, so I just don't know how you guys wanted to proceed on this.
Friendly suggestion is that we could just table it and you guys could revisit it with Steve and then just, if any corrections need to be made, bring up the new corrections, but if no corrections need to be made, we can just untable it at the next meeting and vote on it. How you think?
Well, hang on, before you do that, I won't let that.
No, I don't want to make a motion yet. I want to hear.
So what would that mean in terms of, this has been laid on the desk, it's tabling, then restart the timeline, how does that work?
If there are no changes, can we just vote on it?
Yes.
Okay. But if there are changes, we need to.
You change that, go with this, but move through the entire process. It has to be in final form, for at least 7 days on the desk before it can vote.
Okay.
And we still would be able to make it before the end of this council before it switches, because we'd still have the time.
I guess I'll go back to you, Scott. Are you making?
Yeah, anybody else want to talk before I do that? Because it stalls everything.
Well, I just want to get some clarity. So
Have to be a second.
the CMU is listed in number 2 under materials, and it's the second sentence, it just says concrete masonry units. So I just wanted some clarity to make sure that we're not excluding landscaping block. And then I guess I'm also, if someone's gonna spend the kind of money for block and brick, we all know that you gotta go down to the frost line, so that's 50 inches around here. That's a substantial amount of money somebody is investing. I was just trying to understand why we were excluding it. So I definitely get electrically charged wire, barbed wire, and tarps, scrap metal.
Glenn, where is that listed again?
Number 2, second sentence, far to the right.
That's interesting because in 1, you can have a concrete wall or fence, but you can have a concrete block wall or fence.
I was just looking for some clarity on this. And then number 4, where it says it's just for fence and not walls and fences, and that's what this law is about.
Yeah. So I will make a motion that we table this, so those questions can be answered.
All right, so Scott's made a motion to table. Do we have a second? Yes, Mark. Okay.
Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Liston.
Aye.
Councilmember French.
Sure.
Councilmember Carden.
Aye.
Councilmember Rankin.
Aye.
Councilmember Ogilvy.
Aye.
Councilmember Crawford. Yes.
All right, we'll go with motion number 8. Do I have a motion to approve? Glenn, followed by Katie, and Scott, you pulled.
Yeah, I just, in finance and human resources, I wasn't in support of this. I'm not really sure I'm in support of it now. I know we try to help out our employees when we can, but we've also found out that sometimes that puts us in a predicament. Where we're starting to, now another person could come and then we're just keep going down the road chasing our tail of doing special offsets to, and when we create positions like this, or we slide somebody over for extended duty. So I'm not really sure I'm in favor of this, and that's why I pull it off the consent agenda for those reasons.
Discussion on this? That's Emily.
We've had incidents with employees in the past where we've granted as a medical or whatever to try to help them out, and then it just seems to snowball into the next. All of a sudden, another one comes in front of us, and another one comes in front of us, and it starts going from department to department. And and then where do you say no? And then if you say no, then you're getting aggrieved, or you're getting put into, it's hard to come up with a line to define where to stop, when to stop, what department, what departments are more important than other departments. And I know we've discussed this before many a times, in the almost 4 years that I've been sitting here. So, it's just one of those things that just keeps coming back in my mind. And
If I understand this correctly, though, this is hinged on the individual passing all the civil service requirements, though, correct? They haven't even taken a test?
Yes, go ahead.
So this title is not, the individual is working in a different title currently. There's a unique situation just because they are currently provisional. They are taking the exam for that title. The two titles are substantially similar. They would both be provisional. The resolution from the exam would be in the other title. This is a request that came from the employee. It's something we discussed with the union. The goal here is the employee wants to continue to work. There's work that needs to be accomplished. It would be, not a significant change. There's only one or two duties that are really significantly different between the two job functions. So there's some unique characteristics to this occasion. That would not, sorry, when I say unique, they're unique in that they typically would not occur again. There's no change in their salary for this position, correct? Correct, there's no change up or down. They're same grades.
Further discussion?
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Rickenberger?
Yes.
Councilmember McCarthy? Aye. Councilmember Carson?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson?
no,
Councilmember Overby?
Yeah.
Councilmember Bell?
All right, that passes. And then we are looking at now 1411. Approve Lynn. And Lynn, you pull this.
I just wanted to raise that this particular motion brings forward a unique situation, whereas when you look up in the codes, you'll see where the airport commission, its primary purpose is to make recommendations. So you have folks that are dedicating their time, getting educated on the needs of the airport, and then making recommendations. And 10 years ago, when the contract was decided with MJ, there was others that had been petitioning. They did interviews, they did presentations. This particular case, there was no presentation. And I just wanted to raise to the council that it didn't come from the airport commission. That this was actually, it didn't circumvent them, it didn't include the airport commission. And so I just wanted to raise that, and I think it's based on the way our policy is written. And I'm wondering if maybe that's something we can take a look at. Legislative committee is how that component works with the policy and the airport commission.
So we discussed this in finance committee, and there was, I don't know, right, about the airport consultant. All I'm doing is referring on what I was told is that there was a weighted, so they submitted a proposal and there was like a weighted decision and they scored really, really well. I don't know if it's okay, appropriate for me to ask Jane to elaborate on that a little bit, because I know you spoke about it in the meeting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, there were 2 bids received. There's 3 examiners of the bids. 3 city employees examined each bid. There is a weighted evaluation sheet. There's like 5 different categories of, and they get graded from 0 to 4. And then those different categories are weighted, and then it comes up with a total number of points for the evaluations. The evaluations for the company that is being suggested for tonight's committee meeting scored 10 points higher. So they were, and it was from each individual that reviewed the RFP or RFQ, I forget which one it was. They, each one that reviewed it had the same opinion for both companies. The scores were very, very similar between all 3 of us. And so that's why we brought that recommendation forward to the finance committee. Each category, for example, if there's technical approach, say somebody gets a 4, that might have a 20% weight, where staff qualifications may have a 30% weight. And then, so it's a weighted average. That's how the scores. Those evaluations are then given to the purchasing agent. They're not shared amongst the reviewers. The purchasing agent puts all of the scoring together, comes up with the average, and then reports back to the reviewers as far as which company scored the highest points.
So just to follow up, I guess, understanding that process. How would you, what would you like to see done differently? How do you proceed if you agree?
So in the past, the presentations were done with the airport commission. And so that interviewing process went through them. So I'm just trying to highlight the fact that that wasn't completed this time, and also, and I'm not against Pissarro for any reason, is that also we will lose a airport commission who works for this. So we will I'm just bringing this out to light, but I think in the future, 5 years from now, I think the airport commission should be included in that process. It was not before, and not realizing that the policy excluded them this round, I think is what I'm trying to acknowledge.
I guess that's just unclear, but like, you have the chair, so please in a lot of stuff, but like what you would do like English.
The policy as it's written compared to how and the role of the airport commission.
I just have a suggestion of what we can do in the future, or if you want to backtrack with it, which I don't think we're allowed to do because the process is completed. But part of the RFQ or the RFP process is you can have requirements for interviews and presentations that can be part of the process itself. So you can write it right into the RFP.
Appreciate it. Right, I think unless there's further discussion. Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitaker.
Yes.
Councilmember Clergy. Aye. Councilmember Clergy.
Abstain.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Liberty.
Yeah.
Councilmember Bevins. Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. And that brings us to our general discussion agenda, item number 14. I was sitting in a parking lot in Port St. Lucie, Florida, going over the going over the agenda with Greg, and I expected this to actually appear as the mayor nominates Susan Lettuce for the Deer Management Board. So just that you know that that was my intention here, and that's my oversight in seeing the email once it had gone out. So, but I do put in nomination Susan Lettuce, I think folks who is currently the Otsego County Chief Public Defender. She served on the redistricting committee. She's a member, major component of the Oneonta Federated Garden Club. She serves on the Deer Management Task Force. She generated much of the research that you'll find on the rural Oneonta site, which if you look up, is substantial enough research. She's made connections and established relationships with EDC and other agencies, and obviously she has very good rapport with the folks that are still inclined to be working on that task force. So hers is the name that I was bringing forward. I understand that there's another name. I don't know who this other person is, but in my time, 2 months mayor, 4 months council, I had seen where the merit nomination that was then that a council member said, I also have a nomination. So again, didn't appear here as a nomination for the list. My apologies for my oversight. But that was my intention. Go ahead, please.
I'd like to make a motion.
That. Do we have a second? Second from discussion. Yes. Dave.
I appreciate the work that's been done. I can't support this name going forward, not for this position. Looking at what's required, and I can't. Looking at everything that went forward to get that timeline in place for the Deer Management Plan, I'm not confident that she has the ability to move that forward. So I would be voting no.
Obviously, again, I have nothing but confidence in the outcome of that. That'd be my.
So I'm just curious about the nature of the position as has been presented. I think that my recollection that the Deer Management Plan had some kind of sketching of a coordinator, and there've been some discussions in our meetings, but I don't think anything's been formalized. So what are the expectations of the coordinator position that have been presented to her? And then what is she, if she's kind of consented to possibly doing this, what is she consented to? That's the first thing, the scope of that.
Perfect question. So the expectations of the position are, number one, that she reports the progress to council, that there are 10 components that were listed within the Deer Management Plan as we went over them, and that each one of those should have a timeline and benchmarks that are made clear to the council, and the council puts the Deer Management Coordinator accountable to those benchmarks and timelines. And that's the various connections that have been forged, and that includes those volunteer members of the community that are involved, are integrated into a production level that might be more than one person might be expected to do on a voluntary basis.
Do we have that down on specifically the data collection, Mark? I just don't remember.
Yeah, I've got it right in front of me. Under phase 1, starting in June through next May, the end of next May. It's the establish the AVID program. That's number 1. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. But it says data collection should be led by higher education. And under the direction of Hartwick, SUNY Department of Collecting Data and providing interpretation of data and final recommendation based on that data collected. In addition to that, I guess it would tie in with that would be creating a deer nuisance reporting tool.
And in both those, so again, in both those cases, you'd be looking at somebody who'd be coordinating, this would be in Harvard College. Outreach in those cases. To identify somebody who will step up to do that data collection, which not yet happened. To coordinate either with, most likely, a number of students on one path to another, that can provide us with that. I expect there's any appetite among council to be spending money on a firm creating some sort of an app. We work with the research that we have. There are apps, yeah, that's not quite the deal reporting tool that we're looking for. We're looking for something that indicates where we're seeing specifically numbers, a lot of various bits of data, including potentially data systems.
So I'm just taking the name of the individual out and I'm just looking at some of the stuff that we discussed. I'm wondering if we're getting the cart a little bit in front of the horse here. We haven't set up a timeline how long this person would be in for, whether it's gonna be 3 years, 5 years, forever. I think that's something we need to figure out. Also, I was under the impression as we were talking about things that we wanted it to kind of be an interview process. You know, whether we got one name, two names or whatever, so we can ask very specific questions. I'm not sure if we're like right there yet to appoint somebody. It kind of lagged down a little bit for an appointment. I know Greg reached out to somebody at one point and they turned it down, but I was more under the impression that we were gonna like interview first and to make sure that it's correlated. And my other thing is this really not personal? Is this really a mayor appointment or is this gonna be more of a, somebody's volunteering, and is the council gonna be in charge of that appointment or how did that work? I thought we had some, waiting for some answers on whether there be any kind of civil service thing or anything like that, that we had to put through human resources with Joe first or. So that's just my couple
We didn't even know if we
questions.
were paying this position, right?
No, it was, even though it was volunteer,
We talked about, didn't we talk about paying?
and we also talked about having a paid position. So those are my, just things that are hanging out there that.
The timeline is a good point, Scott, that we actually haven't talked about how long this person's in there for.
So, my suggestion is, because I am hearing from constituents that the concern is that we are moving slowly, perhaps more slowly than they expect us to, around trying to mitigate our deer issues. I'm not saying we are. It's a perception, and I'm dealing with it fairly regularly. I think there's value in putting somebody in place. We could easily say that it's a one-year position to be revisited. Is a volunteer position. I don't know that a volunteer position of someone who has the bona fides of the nominee I put forward is something that is relevable easily by somebody else who might be interested or might be a hunter. There's a lot of, as I said, a lot of research that she personally was responsible for. It sits on the old floor on the outside. It's pretty impressive. There are a lot of connections that she's made. They're also pretty impressive. She's got relationships with people in other communities that have dealt with similar issue as we have. It's not a big deal, issue. she brings a lot to this. And she's willing to do it. And if we need to say, well, for a year, we'll try it out and come back to it, I don't think that that would be anything that she'd have an issue with. And also, as is the case with a lot of task forces, they are supposed to sunset. We are supposed, it's not a standing committee. We should get to a place where the issue has, if not fully resolved itself, at least we find ourselves on a trajectory where it should.
Yeah, I think I would just like to say that I didn't know that, your suggestion was Susan until you just said it now. But hearing that, knowing, Susan, I don't know her well, but we overlap a lot. She has always struck me as someone who will get things done. And I think that putting a point person, I think what we're lacking in this effort is a point person. And I know from hearing from her and other members of the task force, there's just a real energy to keep going. And so if she is willing to do it and wants to see this project forward and has been integral to it from the beginning, and knowing, you know, that I know that she wants to see something through, I think she's a great recommendation, which is why I felt compelled to make the motion right away, because I think that is a great suggestion. And it may not be swaying any of you, but I would hope that you would consider it, because I think that putting someone in a role as a point person on this project who's willing to do it and is willing to read the report, I mean, help write the report, you know, but read the report and follow the criteria is beneficial to the program as a whole. So that's my 2 cents.
I would just like to reiterate kind of what Katie said, and even though my interactions with Susan have been limited, like whenever I, you know, in the times that I have worked with her, I see her as a very thorough person and someone that takes people's opinion, especially like council opinion, like very, very importantly. And, you know, she's called me after meetings before to ask my opinion on things. Like, she's someone that is really good at like following through. So, you know, I don't see any reason why she wouldn't do it from that job.
So when we started through our committee working on this, and the Deer Management Task Force was appointed, we gave them a specific job to do. What was brought back was the DMAP permit that was taken directly from the DEC website. It wasn't a plan, it was a DMAP permit. And then there was a lot of confusion because the DEC caught wind of it. They came in, they were upset because there hadn't been communication, and they said you can't just apply for that directly. And there was a lot of back and forth. We sent the Deer Management Task Force away to talk with the DEC and correct things. What they came back with was, I thought, in my opinion, was more of the same. So what our committee had to do was go back and create an actual plan, step by step, broken down into 3 phases, what you see and what we passed. So what I would like to see for a point person is not somebody from that task force. I think it would be beneficial to the community to have somebody outside of that task force heading up this plan, working with the task force if they still want to be part of that. That's fine, but I think we need a different point person that will lead this and go through all 3 phases. And the other thing I'd like to bring up is every other community that has a deer management plan, it doesn't sunset. The problem is continuing.
And again, not to be adversarial or argumentative here, I know that there was a lot of confusion on the DEC part. And I know from having poured over all of the content, and there's quite a bit of it that was generated that sits on the authority on the side of the Deer Management DEC. There are, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of documents. If there was any confusion on their end, I might more likely be responsible than anyone. Roll on that story. What I can tell you about Susan Lettuce, I would echo both what Emily said and what Katie said, is that she is thorough and she is responsive. And if you're looking for somebody who is going to be responsive to this council, who will report to this council and follow the direction of this council and the direction that has been detailed in the current deer management plan, I don't know that you find somebody better than this.
I can't recall this particular piece of the plan, but do we have written into this plan, an expectation of reporting, timeline? For example, will the coordinator be reporting to council or the committee? Did you get everything to be able to take a look? I think it'd be good to make sure to establish a reporting timeline, reporting frequency. And then also where that reporting first will go back to the Employee Elected Infrastructure Committee, or is it the entire council? I think we need to just put some parameters around this and expectations around this beyond what's also here, to tease out this position further, that there's clarity and direction in moving forward.
And from what I said to Susan was that there'd be an expectation that every couple of months there'd be a report to council, that council would be listening to the report on progress made relative to benchmarks that were set. And that I don't know that any individual committee is more appropriate as a place where discussion is report. I think the council is interested. I think all eight of you are dealing with constituents that would like to know what's being done with the deer, and I think that Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee did an excellent job. Appreciate it. But I feel like this is once every 2 months on the agenda. We have a report from the Deer Management Coordinator, and any questions that may arise would be answered in that moment. Any directive that needs to be generated would be also created in that moment. And my expectation, Susan, knowing her, is that she would follow through on the council's expectations.
So I'm kind of with Scott on this meeting and taking the person, and I'm not disagreeing with anybody's summation or recognition of Susan. She is an amazing person. I'm looking at this like, I don't have that in front of me, the document, but I was pretty sure we agreed that this individual would report back to the Quality of Life and say, on the fly tonight, you're going from it was on the discussion, you apologize that it's under discussion, that you were going to make a formal recommendation, to, I wrote it down, now it's a volunteer position, whereas we talked, it might end up being paid, we had to flush that out, and now you're suggesting a 1-year term, which we hadn't even discussed of the agreement. I'm just wondering, should we just take a pause and go back and kind of, to Mark's point, flush all these out to where it's going? Every 2 weeks, if we have a committee, that committee reports back to the council. The whole point of like a finance meeting is to go through all these points. They're flushing them out to us. So I don't necessarily buy into the fact that this individual is going to report to the council at large. I'd rather see him report to a committee where it's a little bit more intimate, and some more questions back and forth can be asked.
Yeah, I would just respectfully disagree that an individual reporting to council is not going to find themselves or the council shortchanged with the numbers of questions or answers that might be allowed in the time frame. I also think that given that you fall to a position on something that is not a standing committee, that are deciding as a group that if we need to look at a shorter period of time for this council to make a decision as to whether or not this is a good person to continue on for the long term. If she would even want to, these are volunteers we're talking about, want to continue on the long term. She is the Otsego County Chief Public Defender. She may find that her.
Everybody's questioning her.
Right. My point is
that one up and off. I'm not questioning her at all. I'm questioning that I don't think this council has fully flushed out all of the requirements of this position. But if you want to force us to a vote, I can tell you right now, I'm going to abstain.
Right now, under number one, under deer management program, it says establish a coordinator to implement City of Oneonta deer management program. City council will determine whether this is a volunteer or paid position. I don't believe we've done that yet.
Can we just do that right now? If we have a candidate who's willing to do it in a volunteer capacity, I guess I just don't understand what taking it back to a committee is going to do other than delay this decision for a month. For a month, yeah. And we already trying because it's taking a lot of work, but it doesn't seem like these are insurmountable challenges that are being put on the table at the moment.
Been amended to recognize what you're saying.
I have a concern. I think it goes along with what Scott brought up originally and Mark and Len have said. I feel like we're dealing with a process here, and the process ends with appointing someone. And I don't think that we've taken the steps that lead up to the point where we make the decision to appoint someone to it. So it's not that it doesn't have anything to do with the person that was nominated. I just feel like we haven't gone through the process. And it needs to go either through the legislative committee or one of the finance and human services, legislative, quality of life.
Can I just ask how we got here to this particular thought that we haven't gone through the process? Only because, like, this hasn't been, and it's not to diminish the work that you guys can do in the interim, but this hasn't been on the agenda to flesh out these things. It's been the plan that we need to hire a coordinator or appoint a coordinator. So if these steps have been missing, they haven't been worked on in the meantime. And in the meantime, we've like missed deadlines and the project isn't going anywhere, you know? So I think in my mind, if we were to appoint someone, whoever that may be, I think the process would work itself out rather quickly because we have a plan. We know that in the plan we have to appoint someone.
Let me jump off the bridge and answer that one. Because it's been in the council's hand and we haven't moved it forward. That's how we got to this position.
I'm sorry. I
just-
just don't.
Just saying, I mean, that's where it stalled. It's been in the council's hand and we haven't done it. We haven't done it because of the amount of stuff that we've had on our plate. And quite honestly, again, I'm just looking at things have they gone down and have we not got the answers? Because we've asked these questions, we haven't gotten the answers. We haven't had time to work on it. It hasn't been on the council agenda to work on it. I don't set the council agenda. We worked on it in Click. We've worked on, I can tell you right now, I'm about deer managed out.
It's part of the budget
But-
discussion.
That's right.
Today,
Yeah.
that in there. It hasn't been talked about since.
Right. We haven't gone, right, like you said, with the budget process, whether it's gonna be paid or not. So. I mean, I'm just answering your question. It's not one person's, one committee's fault. It's just, we've had a lot on our plate. So I'm just answering the question.
I hear you.
Mark. And it's nothing against you, it's nothing against this person, it's just, like I said, I kind of already said what.
In Katie's report on the Parks and Rec Commission meeting, one of the things you mentioned was that there was deer education posted. That came of this group that I have tried to disband several times because actually I've worked for some of these other people. but they have all let go. And they know that if they're not doing it, no one's doing it.
They
They-
didn't physically do it, but they need that project.
Well, they actually got grants. We didn't, the city didn't pay for that.
Right.
They got a grant to put this up. I said, everything we need to be done. But they did get a grant. So they continue to take this lead, which I don't do anything but commit. And I do know, and I'm sure many of you, folks are getting similar phone calls and similar complaints about, there was a deer, I guess, on East Street that was just the other day. I was in transit, but I was told about it. There was a dead deer on East Street. I mean, it's not a non-issue. And every month that we're not procrastinating, I'm not gonna call it that, but we are not exactly moving the ball down the field. And there is somebody here who is eminently qualified, who has done tons of research, who will be reporting, to council, and she has a reputation for being thorough, who was volunteered in this moment. They say that that's something that I can come back to council next month and say that she's still interested. I don't know that I would be. But in this moment in time, she's volunteered. And we are better for that than we would be, I think, in, let's trim this up. Let's get away, let's take care of any fuzziness around the edges. Yeah, we can clean it up a little bit, but it's not so complicated, we can't clean it up in this moment.
Just to clarify, since I know you said that, but I don't want to make this really public, my problem is not the exposure, is the recommendation for the exposure being to be extended to other areas, and not just in the. No, I think so, we're kind of limping along with the implementation of the plan, and the idea of that was to try to address as much as possible, understand a bit more, the deer populations, because we're trying to understand this problem. And so it's really trying to be a thoughtful and methodical approach to understanding, making clear how we can target our response and where we can have that response. So that was my issue with the exposures. It's not them itself, it was that it's limited in one section of it when we know that we have problems throughout the entire city. We haven't included those in our study.
And I did understand that. And it was just literally, they gave me $1,000 and they were able to create deer exposures with that. But your point was well taken then, and still is well taken, and was well taken by that group, that the more that we know across a larger geography, the more capable we are of implementing a plan that is going to be successful. We do have a motion and a second.
May I ask her, did we just have motion again? Could we have that motion read again? Or state it again?
So, yeah, can I restate my motion? Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we appoint Susan Lettuce to the deer management coordinator position on a volunteer basis for
That wasn't the
1
original motion.
year, right?
You have to make a friendly amendment to your
I'd
motion.
like to make a friendly amendment to my original motion to add that it's on a volunteer basis for a term of 1 year. What's that?
Mark and I were.
The original motion was the appointer, and then your friendly amendment is volunteer, and what was the other part?
For 1.
Not a matter of saying, friendly amendments, you have to have everybody on board to make the amendment for us.
There has to be consensus unless we reject.
Yeah, sorry.
Is there any objection to the friendly amendment? There being none.
So the motion is being voted on.
There will be a motion to appoint Susan Lettuce for a term of 1 year to the volunteer position of your management board.
I have another question.
Love it.
Right.
I'm almost finished.
I would like some assurance that Click is gonna come forward with a process, job description, whatever you want to call it. That a description of what's expected for this 12-month period. Can somebody on Click make me feel comfortable about that?
That'd be more appropriate to the legislature. I'm not saying that. But, well, the question is how long is this position going to be?
Here's-
If you look at other communities, it's around forever.
Yeah.
We'll take this 1 year, I guess.
I almost think it'd be better under finance and human resources to come up with a job description. And yes, Dave, I know I'm on Click and I'm also on finance, but I mean, you are talking, even though it's a volunteer position, I think it'd probably,
Well, why don't we take it back to Click and then see what we come up with, and we could always forward it to another committee for input anyway. I mean,
And ultimately, do council. So, does that make you feel further discussion?
this is for 1 year.
Yes.
She's gonna report to who?
Unless Click decides on some other variation. That's what I.
Katie, that's what you have in your motion, is that this individual will, because I don't think you do.
Well, I'm not gonna describe the whole thing. The
Oh,
motion is
that's
just
in
to
the
appoint her, and then we're going to work on what we expect. But we need to involve somebody.
Right. And I'd like to know who's going,
So my motion is to hand the ball to Susan for 1 year and not pay her anything. Be very grateful for her service.
I'm just suggesting, who is she going to report to? Mark is saying to the council, but is that in the motion?
No.
I just want to know who she's gonna report to. If we don't define it right now.
I think the point is that, sorry, that whatever council feels has not been worked out about the position to this point when we decided in the committee. But what we're trying to do right now is appoint someone.
and then if we change that in Click, who she reports to, then that goes against what the resolution is. I'm
Correct.
asking Dave as our
That's
lawyer. is
why I'm
that-
trying to figure this out before we
I'm getting confused now, that's why I was
push this
asking.
forward.
Dave.
I just want to know how we're going to, are we circumventing this, Dave?
In the absence, understand council, in the absence of granting authority to some other entity, always holds control over everything. So unless it's an abdication of power by the council, any person that's created on any committee, anywhere ultimately reports to the council. Committees do not have power within themselves, unless it's granted specifically. For example, normally any appointment on any matter for any purpose ultimately devolves to the responsibility of the council, unless there's specific delegation.
Make the recommendation that if council decides to appoint her, that she meet with quality of infrastructure, to both vet out the kind of position expectations, clarify the timeline, mostly just make sure that there's no misunderstanding of what needs to take place, what the original thinking was behind a lot of that, because there was a lot of thinking by the members of that committee to try to come up with something that was going to be successful in managing that. That could be then agreed upon with the individual is in this position. And then, that reporting can certainly take place in council, but at least quality of infrastructure is able to kind of really tease out that in conjunction with the person, make sure that we have a really clear understanding moving forward. I think we all recognize that we have an issue that we need to address. It's just that we didn't feel like the process was. I think Lynn spoke to this frequently, Scott, sorry, some of that. that this might help us to be able to finalize or polish up the process a bit believably, but in a way that allows us to move forward for the future.
Susan, and knowing her advocacy and her desire to be assisting in the process, I think that is good.
What I would like to see is the committee have a conversation first beforehand about what our expectations are, and then we can bring her in, if she is appointed, bring her into the process to finalize it. But I think our committee needs to have our own conversation first.
She's a team player. So we are still now at the place where I think we have just finished our discussion, I believe, and we have a motion, and I think we can probably vote on this. And starts off too.
No.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Lisberger?
No.
Councilmember LaFourche? Yes. Councilmember Person?
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Liberty?
Yes.
Councilmember Butler? Yes.
Okay, folks, we'll move on to additional business and anything for council discussion. Yes.
Parking garage. The demolition work. Long-term communication plan with the business owners on Water Street. I know that Chris has a lot on his plate and he's trying to deal with this as best as he can, but it seems like every week he's being hit up with a new issue. I'm just wondering, does the contractors, do they have some form of a communication plan that is better than, I just think we need to come up with a better communication plan because those business owners are not really being communicated with, and it's all going to our city staff when really this is on the contractors that are working down there to communicate with the business owners and even the tenants that are up there on. I mean, we're looking at a 1.5 year project. We're just in the incipient stage of it, and my phone keeps ringing. I'm sure Emily, your phone keeps ringing. It just seems like these contractors need to come up with a better plan of communicating with the people that are directly affected by this.
So we've asked the contractors to communicate through Wendell to the city what updates need to be shared with this government, and then we share them directly with them. That makes the work set up. That is directly emailed to those that signed up at this work contract. I'm not sure that the contractor could more efficiently complete that would be different and probably that effective. But I'm not saying that we could put that for we could ask daily updates from contractors directly to me about those pieces. That city. I have noticed that some of those folks who are on that haven't communicated back to the DPS info at me down that contact us or orders you want 100 it kind of slows down the response when it looks, around the path, but then it gets back up. So that would be one thing I would continue to stress here. Please use that process. If we don't hear that there,
you gotta report it. For you, for- but welcome to suggestion. For sure, but I just don't think that asking a contractor, to knock on a door with a business and, and individually along that stretch is.
I'm not suggesting that, Greg. What I'm suggesting is like the ramp. The ramp was decided that they weren't gonna close it down, and then they closed it down. And they're justified, it's their project, but they just need to communicate with the business owners, telling them that they have the ramp to allow their customers to drive up, and then not.
So the Water Street extension, right? There's two different projects that are getting. Water Street extension. Water Street extension ramp, we communicated to the hair of the dog and the other things, and then, customers need to reach their businesses directly. They could use the ramp and go the other direction. DES working for Nice by a separate project doing gas pump, and apparently to the plant itself, or we can ramp but not allow people to come through like a direct. Similar to how they closed down Market pushing their today, which was not supposed to happen until tomorrow based on competition. Yesterday. So that contractor works for Nice Bay, and in both of those instances have been the cause of this issue. So I think we did have a discussion with using the Water Street extension ramp long way. Rents thrown in the works. It's something out of our control.
Chris, did you want to add something to the coverage?
I just wanted to state exactly what Greg has just stated. So DDS has been difficult to coordinate with. They've made the situation down there complicated. I have nothing else to add to that.
Of course, today we're voting Foothills, and I've just kept getting phone calls about how Market Street is closed. Why is it closed? How am I supposed to get around? Blah, blah, blah.
I literally met with their foreman on Monday, discussed the closure for Market Street for Wednesday, and I learned at 11 o'clock today that they had closed it today without discussing with me.
And you understand me, Chris. I'm not pointing fingers at you. You guys gotta have enough. You definitely have enough on your plate. Greg has enough on his plate. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying the contractors need to communicate better of what their work schedule is going to be.
For what it's worth, I've also been making the rounds on Water Street, and I will again on Thursday, just so that as much as I can reiterate what the process is and the fact that that the city is aware and concerned. And we certainly want the businesses on Water Street to not only survive, but I hate to use the word, but thrive. So.
Right, exactly.
I know, I couldn't help myself, but
You don't want to
but the
punish
reality
those
is-
small business owners because of our action.
Exactly, that's exactly right. Scott?
Is there a way we can get NICEAG or DDS, whoever has that trailer, get it off the road? Because I've almost seen 3 people go underneath that trailer as they got it parked on the road with their gas mains on it. And I think that is super dangerous to be having it parked right on the corner of South Main and Market. It also makes it hard to come out of that intersection before we have an accident. And it ties up traffic because they have to come way over, the other one's coming down. If you got a bus in the car, they meet in the middle, then they're all both stopped. Nobody knows who to back up. One's waiting for the other, they're getting impatient. It's been a mess down there since they parked that stuff there. We didn't allow it to be parked on River Street during the water project. They had to put their stuff off onto city right of ways. And stuff like that. Just down there is before somebody gets killed. It just needs to get removed from the road.
Point, Scott, thank you. Do we have anything else for any other additional business for council discussion? Dave, we had a.
That was announced already. The Oneonta boys cross country team won their section 4 class C championship second year in a row. So they're headed to the state tournament again this coming weekend.
Right. We will work back on that. Sure. Good, great. All right, if there's, Scott, you have something? Just twirling your pencil?
Just keep looking at a clock that's
There's
not
no
there.
clock there. That's an outlet. All right, so if there is no additional,
Okay.
business,
Something,
go ahead.
if anyone would like to say something. Yes, please.
I thought we, sorry, yeah, looking at a date for a special meeting council now. So if the council decides, we wait the time of the budget, the vote will be on the 21st. If you'd like to have further discussion without having to vote on anything.
I thought we had a date on the 28th.
21st is when we vote on extended, so it would have to be between now. Oh, it would have to be, if the council wanted to have a discussion before voting. Granted, we could discuss on the 21st.
Does just moving everything up to 6 o'clock on the 21st will work for people? Yes. That will provide.
Now that I've looked at my calendar, I know, that we're all trying to really promote, to our constituents, the DOT presentation, which is on the 14th at 5:30 at OHS. And it's about the roundabout at, Main, all of those highways. There's a Zoom, there's a, I think it'll be recorded, so just, I know there's been a lot of build up to this, so it's for the three of you that might be watching at home. November 14th, which is a Tuesday.
There, 10.
I know you're engaged citizens, so, November 14th, which is a Tuesday at 5:30 at the OHS auditorium. What? Oh, geez. Okay.
Any further discussion, conversation, or any council? Jenny?
Can I just make a couple comments? Okay, just on the budget process. On October 30th, I sent out a memo with a lot of charts for you guys to study for tax levy information. There's a lot of information in that memo. I don't know if all of you've had a chance to read it and study it, but I strongly suggest that you do. There's a lot of information there. I also provided a memo to go over the tentative budget tonight. Please read that. Any questions that you have, I'm a little worried that if we only meet at 6 o'clock on the 21st, that hour may not provide enough time for a thorough budget discussion. I also plan on having the fund balance projections and a Waterworth presentation for the water and sewer rates, and that's why I was hoping for a special meeting. So give it some thought, but it will be a very busy hour. So if we wait until the 21st.
So 5 with that.
I would be more comfortable if we met at 5. That way we'd have 2 hours to actually discuss things in more detail. I don't know if you guys are available at 5. I don't know if Greg and the mayor are available at 5.
Have to bring a bag supper.
Suppose we split the difference at 5:30 so that those folks that might otherwise be late already.
That's totally up to you.
Yeah, sure.
I just want you to know that there's a lot of information there. I will get it out to you as soon as it's ready. Please also send me any questions that you have so I can.
So we're going to, within the, will that work for everyone?
So Jenny, just to clarify, I'm taking notes. I'm trying to stay on top of everything for the meeting. October 30th memo as well as this one to make sure that we're fully, obviously going through the budgets too, but those the key points in those 2 memos. Okay.
Okay. Jenny, anything else?
No, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. Okay, well, then there's no need for an executive